you want. Please don't talk unless you're invited to. And please, I don't want any naked bodies, any bits, anything showing. This isn't therapy. However, it is a safer environment. It's nicer. So we don't want any nakedness. We don't want anyone approaching anyone, asking for anything or saying, hey, would you like to go out with me? Hey, you've got a pretty smile, or any of that shit. Please, can we just make sure that's not said here? Mr. P, hi everyone, sunny Oxfordshire here, so I kid myself. Hi, Red Naskell and Cinders. Yeah, I've been busy this week helping friends who are dropping off supplies to the Polish border. It's come a bit of a project for me now. Yeah, I really respect that, Cinders. I do. I respect action. Luke, hello, Luke. Domina, hi, Luke. Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. Really nice to see you. So this is being recorded by a variety of people to be put on. I'm assuming if those people are around, it often is. Let's hope. Hello, Mark. Nice to see you all. So, as I said, please look after yourself. Make sure your real name isn't on here unless you want it to be. Mine is because I'm out. I'm different. You're really welcome, Mark. Thank you too. They're completely for my ego. They're all about me. So, you know, it's not really a favour, is it? Luke, I've been missing too many of these. I'm so glad to watch properly again. Oh, thank you, Luke. That's really sweet of you. And maybe see you on Sunday. Sunday is lamb. It's a very special lamb. If anyone is around London and wants to come along, it's the birthday lamb, and Cosmic, who runs lamb, is going to be receiving 50 lashes of a whip, even though he is a dominant person, and he's trying to raise money for charity. I did actually once, he was trying to raise a certain money quite a few years ago, one of the times I'd seen him before, and I think I put in quite a lot of money just to make sure that he did get a good spanking, because he put a money limit. I don't think there's a money limit on this one. Princess Alice, I'm not able to make it. Shame. Zoe, I look forward to seeing you. And Adam, good morning. It is good evening here. Jerry says he's dominant. We'll find out. I don't want to know how we'll find out if he's enjoying it or not. I'm not going to go there at all. Right. So what are we talking about today? No, it's morning, 3:04. Fucking hell, that is Jesus. Evening, Opal Fruit. I appreciate you being here, Jacob. I'll tell you at that time. And Lady Janet, greetings from California. Hi, y'all. It's very cool. My daughter's just come back from America. She's going back next week. And I will be in Florida in April, May. I'm at Worlds, Cheerleading Worlds and Summit. So I will be in Disney. Woo-hoo. I bet there are lots of littles who want a present from Disney, don't you? Who's going to send me a list? The person who just asked me, can I record it? You don't need to record it. It'll go on YouTube. So you can watch it again on YouTube. So because I don't have everyone else's permission to record, it's not about just me. So if you could not record, please, and just watch it on YouTube, because it will go on there under London Alternative Markets, guys. So it will be around, I promise. So because I do talk fast, I'm going to try and talk slower this time. Oh, now contemplating my lamb debut. What time is the action? Depends what you mean by action. So the market opens at 12. There's a beginner's newbies introduction at 1. There's my workshop at 2. I mean, that's the action. Shut up, Jerry. 7. I'm there. Then there's other workshops. And the workshops this week are something to do with rope, I think. I can't remember. And the law. It's about BDSM and the law. They're the workshops. Debs and talk slower, never going to happen. I know, it's really true, isn't it? Oh, bondage with bear bites. So it's bondage. So it's my workshop, bondage, and then the law and BDSM. Okay, so let's start talking about the 3 subjects that we've got. What have we got today? We've got submissives and self-care. I mean, I think you could say BDSM and self-care, or dominance and self-care. But the reason we're going for submissives, I'll cover that. Chastity is in the middle. Chastity is always in your middle. Top to bottom, chastity is always in your own middle. We're definitely doing chastity. Can't remember what we're doing at the end at the moment. Oh, sleep. That's what we're doing, honestly. Lamb, London Alternative Market. Yes, that's what it is. So it's one of the biggest fetish fairs that you can go to. There are 3 workshops that are run for free every time, and a beginner's welcome class type thing. And there's loads of stalls, and then there's a party afterwards. I'm excellent at sleeping. Ask anyone. Who have you slept with? How do we know? I just know my recorder tells me I snore a lot, so don't come and sleep with me. at all. Right, so let's talk about submissives and self-care. Why do I think it's particularly relevant, and why has the person asked me about submissives? Well, I'm going to assume that the person who asked me was submissive. However, I'm also going to add that submissives aren't always the best at self-care, because even the term submission is about bending to the will of somebody else. It's about pleasing somebody else. Assistant ethical non-stop glass. Yeah. So that's part of the problem, isn't it? Because we want to bend to the will of somebody else. Oh, by the way, while I'm talking, somebody said when they were talking about this workshop the other day that they don't always agree with everything I say. You don't have to agree with everything I say. Please, please, please do remember that disagree. Talk to me about it. Talk to me about why you disagree. So please bring it up, let's have a discussion. And I really like that. You don't have to agree with everything I say by far. Nogamot. I'm great in bed also. I can sleep for days. I'm loving this. I'm great in bed. No sex, just sleep. So, but actually sleep is part of self-care, ironically, isn't it? But we'll come back to that one at the end, because what I want to talk about as well when we talk about sleep is one of the reasons I'm doing it in this BDSM workshop is I'm going to talk about generalized sleep hygiene, but I want to talk about what happens when we play or have sex, in our chemical responses, and then what happens when we try and go to sleep afterwards. So I'm going to take it from the point of view of BDSM, submission and dominance, if that's okay. I would, wouldn't I? Because that's what we're talking about. Red says, wait, I can be a sub and disagree. Depends on the dominant, I suppose. E&M class today. No E&M. We're not doing ethical non-monogamy. I think in 2 weeks, next week I'm doing jealousy for sure. So, well, yes, you can disagree. What happens after that, though, depends on the person. Right, so let's talk about self-care. Can I just say, when I talk about self-care, I think it's really important to realize the difference between treating yourself and self-care. I think self-care is also about getting up every morning, having a shower. We know one of the major things for our mental health is about organization and structure. Get up, how I manage the day, what I've got to do, and what all of those things mean, rather than I'm going to have my nails done, or I'm going to have my hair done, or whatever it is. I'm going to have a back sack and a crack, or whatever. Those things might be very important, but they're not always about self-care. And for some people, masturbation might be self-care. So it makes a difference. Oh, subtle plug, Opal Fruit teaches rope from around 7:30. So Opal Fruit's there, and he does do some talking around rope and teaching and showing as well. So when I talk about self-care, what I mean is about looking after yourself. Who here is submissive or a switch who does quite a lot of submission as well? Many people? Please don't mention time management. Sub, my self-care is appalling. I'll be coming to see you, Opal. Switch. Okay, so people, sub. Hiya, sub. So quite a few subs. Sub. Okay, so I think what a lot of people, switchy top, sub a little here, sub. Okay, so quite a few subs in the room. Sub switch with women, sub sadomasochists. Okay, so a real variety of humans in this room, which is fairly awesome, isn't it? I think one of the things that subs really struggle with is doing something for themselves. So I want to switch it on you, and I want you to think about, if you're not owned or you want to be owned, or as you turn around and you say that I don't want to look after myself, I want to look after the other person. If you are owned property, or you want to be owned property, or if you want to be someone submissive, or if you want to belong, your job is to look after yourself. So if you, and Jill's saying the same, so if you are somebody who wants to belong or does belong, part of your self-care is really important. Now, that's not just about waxing, cleaning, preening. That's about, how do I look after myself? How do I help myself in any way, shape, or form? That's what really matters. That's the important bit here. It could be eating, it could be sleeping, it could be drinking, it could be many things. And some people, it might be about weight control. Some people, that's absolute no. Some people might be about exercise. Some people, it might be about many things. That's for you 2, 3, 4 to negotiate between yourselves in any way, shape, or form. So what sort of things do we mean? Jill says, like, as a sub, one of my daily tasks is my physio stretches, and others taking my meds and supplements. Yeah, it can really help to have someone looking after you from that perspective, can't it? Really does help that self-care is, what do I need to do today? I mean, always tell your sub not to drink Coca-Cola. It's really bad for you. Like as a sub, one of oh sorry, it also gives me subby brain. It helps, doesn't it? So what sort of things are good? Part of self-care, I think, is boundaries. I think it's looking after yourself. It's having your capacity to negotiate. It's having the capacity to talk. It's having the capacity to self-reflect about what's good for you on the day, what's bad for you on the day, and what is it that you need. The basics are really important. Having a shower, if you can, if you've got the energy, having a bath, could be luxurious. It could be going to the gym. It could be lots and lots of things. My neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, sabotage, anything routine. Funny enough, what I find with a lot of, however, what I find with a lot of people who are submissive, that sometimes that can supersede the ADHD. Not always, but sometimes. So that matters. Princess Alice, I have tasks like getting up in time, brushing teeth, having food, and sleeping at a proper time. Yes, and those things really, really matter. And of course, what we have to do is take neurodivergence into account. How does this work? What can I do? How can I look after myself? What does that look like? Doriana says, I have a much easier time doing things for other people that I can't just do for myself. I have ADHD. Yeah, so I really understand that. But if it becomes your job, the psychology here is of, I'm not asking you to look after yourself. I'm asking you to look after what I care for. That makes a difference, and that can really help as well. Not for everybody all the time, just for some people. I think it's really important that self-care is about having a life. It's about managing your bills. It's about making sure that you can pay your way, that you can look after yourself, that you hold down your handles. My food. That's fair enough. Jill, profoundly autistic, possibly some level of ADHD, also fatigue disability. Yeah, I hear you. And Domina's laughing at you, Jim. Jill, being able to offload some of the associated executive dysfunction is super useful. Yes, absolutely. If people don't know what executive dysfunction is, it's our capacity to use our brain in a certain way that says, I need to do this, this needs to happen, this is how it needs to happen. And executive dysfunction is where the brain doesn't quite tell itself to do that. That's a simple way of putting it. It's a lot more complex than that. Explorer says, self-care could also be meditation, walking in nature, painting, journaling, reflecting, singing, listening to music. I'm just coming on to all of those. So I completely agree, Explorer. It could be about skills in BDSM. It could be about practicing positions. It could be about getting better. It could be about reading. It could be about leisurely reading, or it could be about informative type reading, like reading a good book like Polysecure or something along those lines that says, right, I want to understand myself and others and what that means. It could mean having something done for you. It can absolutely mean masturbating, as somebody said earlier. I've got a huge writing on masturbation. It's really fucking good for you. It's interesting because it ties into chastity later as well, that we're going to be talking about. And chastity can be great, can help with focus. However, orgasms are really good for you as well if you are lucky enough to be able to have any. So having an orgasm is really good for you. It's our capacity to be able to speak, to say, this is what's working for me, this is what isn't, this is how I feel, this is how I share. Now that sharing could be journaling, that sharing could be done on an email, it can be done on conversations, it can be done on WhatsApp, it can be done in many ways, but sharing is really important. And you really need to learn to take your own feelings very seriously. A good dominant will have absolute time for you sharing how you feel. It's not disobedience. It's sharing how you are. And if you say, I'm starting to crack, and you are property, then if the person cares about their property and you are starting to crack, they don't want their property to crack. So that's really important too. But you'd be surprised how many submissives say, oh no, miss, Mr, sir, mistress, dom, sir, master, daddy. Well, bloody hell, no, fuck, shit, piss, bollocks, I can't. Well, then that's really irresponsible of you as a submissive, because that is part of your duty and care. And if you want to be a good submissive, I hate that word, but you know what I mean? It's really important for us to say, I'm not okay today. I can't, I don't want to. Please, can you take that into account? And to negotiate. It's really, really important. As a dominant, I absolutely love communication. I demand it. And we also then have to take into account neurodivergence. Some people cannot always communicate or can communicate in different ways. So again, this is all about being open-minded and flexible and working out what's going on for people. We have to trust that other people really care, that they have our best interests in heart. And I'm a big believer, if you're going to trust, don't forget to trust yourself. I know I will be okay no matter what happens is a really good thing to do. So to take your own feelings seriously, somebody used to have the 4Ds, which are really good. If you've got a set of things that you want to do, try the 4Ds. Do I need to decommit? Do I need to say, I'm really sorry, I can't do that, it's too much, to someone else or something else, work, anything in some way, shape or form? Do I need to defer it? Do I need to say, I'm going to do it later, this is too much for me right now, so I'm going to decommit, I'm going to defer? Do I need to downgrade? Does it have to be perfect? Does it really have to be that way? Because a lot of submissives are real super women, super men, superhuman beings, super things, super kiddies, super whatever. Choose whatever falls in that way. So it's really important. So downgrading something that isn't as perfect as it could be is really okay sometimes. And the last one is to delegate. Give something to somebody else to do. It might not be done as well as you in some respects, but then that person doesn't learn. Adam says, my sub is expected to talk to me about how they are feeling. Last thing I want is my most valued possession to fall apart. Completely agree with you. And I would really hope that that goes both ways, that the dominant also talks to me about how they're feeling, what's going on for them, and what's happening, without any risk of feeling less dominant in my eyes or their eyes. Jill says, perfect is the enemy of good enough. Winnicott was a very good behavioral psychologist and talked about this a lot. Good enough is really the goal that most of us want to get to. It's a great place to be, makes a real difference. I think knowing how you are in the moment, just taking time sometimes, doing a quick body scan, sitting and saying, what is it I need right now? I've eaten, I feel satiated, I feel a little bit full actually. I won't overdo that on the yeah, so can I say those Ds again? I can. So they're the 4Ds. Decommit, say no, pull away, say, I can't do that. It really is okay. So decommitting to something, if you said too much yes, start to learn to say some no. So that's really important as well. Defer. Can you do it later? Is this a date? If you set things up very much in advance, that helps. So to defer is really important. To downgrade, it doesn't have to be brilliant. It doesn't have to be perfect. How can I do it in a way that is good enough? And delegate, can I give it to somebody else? Who else can do this? So they're the 4Ds and they can really help. It might be that you have to learn how to put yourself first and sit with the moment. So if I'm body scanning, saying, what is it I need right now? How do I get it? What does this mean? It's really important, because if somebody says, how are you? Especially in England, fine. Good, thanks. But if I say to my clients, when I first see my clients, when they appear on the screen, I go, hi, how are you doing? They go, yeah, great. And then I have to say, so how really are you? How are you? Really, what's going on? Well, actually, and then the whole thing opens up. But they'll always say, I'm fine. Okay. Fine stands for feelings inside, not expressed. I know it stands up for fucked up, insecure, and all the other things. I prefer this one. Feelings inside, not expressed. I'm fine. Good. That's not a good start. How are you? I care. I want to listen. You need to know how you are. It's really important. Jill, like I literally asked my dominant 10 minutes ago to defer some of my tasks because of body stuff going on. I got told I was loved and cared for and praised for communicating about what I was feeling. Oh, I really like that. How lovely. Share your dominant as soon as possible. I'm kidding. But like, you know, that's care, isn't it? Sometimes, as I said, reading a book can be really good. Switching off is already shared. He's overspread. He's spreading thinly. It's important, isn't it? And that power word, fine, it really is. It's an important word. It might be doing some exercise. If you don't feel like exercise, some small movement could be good, just a walk. It might be some way of maybe doing some meditation. It might be some really focused meditation. It might be doing some form of chant or some kind of ritual that's really good, that could be good for your submission. It also could be good for you in some way, shape or form. People like protocols. We'll talk about those in a couple of weeks, but they also can also be about self-care. There is a oh Jesus, what's it called? I keep recommending it to people. I can't remember. There's a new app out. It's a little bit like an old Tamagotchi. I was saying this to someone earlier that's here. Tamagotchis used to die. We used to look after them, but is it called a Twitch or something? I'll try and remember in a minute, but it's a new self-care app where you have to look after this bird. And if you go for a walk and you tell the app that you've gone for a walk, you've done something for the bird. Finch, thank you, bun bun butt. That's what it is, Finch. So it's a really lovely app. Like, and you really, like, my daughter uses it all the time. You look after this little character and you keep it thriving by looking after yourself. So things like that can be a really good reminder. And the difference to a Tamagotchi is it can't die. You can't kill it off. It doesn't go. "Whoa." So it's a very sweet little app. That things like that can be really good for us. That any of the mindfulness apps, they're really important as well. I mean, batteries killed my Tamagotchi. Well, it was your job to put new batteries in, as it goes. Anyway, so have a look. If you're looking at those things, also have a look at your diet. One of the things, listen, I'm a fat old woman. What can I say? Well, quite a lot actually, because I work with eating disorders and I'm a qualified nutritionist. One of the best things that you can do, look, if you've got a disordered eating habit or eating disorder, please go and see someone. Please make sure you've got that shit helpful to you. So it's really good. If you don't, this could be your new best friend at dinner time, because it's really helpful to stop and say, hang on, what's in this? What am I eating? So I just had some homemade mashed potato with tender stem broccoli, sweet corn and petit pois as my meal. That's what I had. It was from last night. I just reheated it. You can argue that the mash isn't particularly brilliant for you. You can argue that there's magnesium in different bits and pieces in potato, more in the skin than anything else as well. You also need to look at what's in a pea. So it's really good to say, what's in this? What's in this food that's giving me nutrition? What am I eating here? And how am I taking care of this for somebody else? That can really matter. It doesn't work for everybody. My eating is peculiar, but at the moment, still concentrating on eating at least once a day. If you're not in control of that and you want some help with that, it's really important to try and get your habits going as well as you can. Potatoes with a couple of animal fats is actually more or less a complete diet. I think, vegetables, fruit, classics all the time. You might want to just go for a walk. Go for a walk in nature. Go for a walk locally. Just bloody walk on the spot, but start moving. It really makes a difference. Do something really lovely for yourself. I love going to a musical. It means a lot to me. I go to a lot. I go to the pictures, cinema, probably every week. I really love doing it. It means a lot to me. Treat yourself sometimes within reasonable money, financial situations. Princess, I do like to give my daddy reminders to eat properly. Yeah, it's really important. It is important, but what's properly? Properly is about regularity, small amounts as you go through the day. It's really important. So go and see something, go and see a show, go to a gallery, go to a museum, go to watch a race, go to watch some sports, join in some sports, find a local hobby, find something that you really want to do. If you are part of a couple and your sex life is starting to drop off or your BDSM is starting to drop off, go and do something physical together. Go and make some pottery together. Go and do a dance class together. Go and do something that gets your dopamine levels back up, and go and get your dopamine levels to a point where you're physically together. You could be doing some self-defense, all sorts of stuff, and you will find your sex drive and your play drive actually increases if you do that sort of thing together. Properly equals healthily. Properly might mean different things for different people. So properly might not always mean healthily. It might mean regularly. It might mean different things. It might mean amounts to reduce or to increase. It can mean a real variety of things. So go and do something that you really love. I shared a piece months and months ago about fawning. And one of the things it had in it was, so like if I pick up my phone for a second, it's all about taking people out of your life that aren't good for you. So if I show you my top amount of texts and bits and pieces that I've got there, it's going to people now. That's not what I wanted at all. They've got love hearts by them. I don't know if you can see that. So the people that I really love hearing from and I really love and they really matter to me have a love heart by their name. So I know that any one time they're the people for me to text and it reminds me. I've also got warning codes around some people who I know might take my energy, might not be particularly good for me. That's another form of self-care. Who is it I want to give part of myself to today? Is there an invite code if anyone wants to share for Finch? I don't think there is. I might be wrong. So it's really important. If you put something really loving by somebody who's good for you, Domina, I must done a love heart next to mine, Debs. Cheers. I think you can just do it. But it's so you could just have like a mediocre code. You could have this is a really giving code, and you can have this is somebody who actually takes from my time, doesn't give back, isn't particularly good for me, but it's maybe somebody I have to have in my diary for some reason, or in my telephone book. So classifying people is really okay. They're not going to see it unless they nick your phone. It's a really classic thing to do. Cinders, oh, that's a good idea. I set skull and crossbones so those that I've blocked have proven themselves to be horrible people in general. It's really worth sometimes, like especially when you block someone, it's not deleting the number, because if something happens for whatever reason they're unblocked, or they come through on a different media that somehow isn't blocked, the technology varies. At least you've still got that skull and crossbones, or that big red cross, or the green tick, or the love heart, whatever it is. And it just reminds me that I love those people. And sometimes when I'm feeling a bit tired and stressed, if I've got a love heart by name, it also reminds me to be nice to them, because they are people that do matter to me. So for me, that love heart is a two-way communication. It's not just that I don't give or I do give, it's that it's really important to me that I'm kind to that person as well. So it's a really good reminder for me as well sometimes. So I find that quite good. Be open-minded, and please remember you're responsible for yourself. You can look for somebody else to do things for you, but if that relationship then breaks up, that's not so great. While seeing counsellor, your name has a love heart by it, let me tell you. As it goes, I can actually prove that right now. I mean, I won't, I'll show you. But it has a white love heart by it. I don't block numbers, but I like to ask who it's to contact me, just so they know I put distance there. Yes, I often say that, especially if I've deleted a number. Who is this? And it actually really helps to bring their ego down. So we're talking about self-care. Create a network. If you are a submissive, talk to other submissives. We talk. We were talking about mentors last week. Talk to other people. Talk to people that you care about. Say, hey, can I ask you about this? Do you think this is right? Do you think this is normal? And if you've got a dom, master, mistress, mummy, daddy, it doesn't matter what the title is, a top. Actually, I think they should be promoting that. If you've got somebody who wants all the access to all your social network, all your bits and pieces and everything else as well, that doesn't smack of control to me, that smacks of insecurity. And I think the two things are different. Now, some of you might agree with me. What do you think? Or might disagree with me. What do you think? For me, total access to everything that you have, for me, is too much. That's a personal boundary. I'm sorry, you can't have access to absolutely everything. If I have a really, really long-term relationship, that would probably not count anyway, because, here's my access pass, here's my card. You don't think about it. But up front, when you've never met them before, quite a big ask, I think. I allow partners to have access to my phone, but I still expect privacy. I think there's a big difference, and I've written about it again, between privacy and secrets. And we are all entitled to privacy. It's really important that we are. It's really important. So, but I think over time, partners do end up having access. We're like, yeah, no, take my phone, do whatever. But there again, I had a client the other day who has been having an affair online with somebody. They haven't actually met publicly and hadn't said anything. And the partner that she was with, the phone, his phone broke. He said, can I borrow your phone? She said, yeah, without thinking about it. He snuck through everything and he found out. Now, they wanted to finish anyway, but that's now finished in a very different tone compared to how it could have done. That makes a difference. I asked for those things from my sub, but only as an expression of willingness. She knows that I would never violate that privacy. Look, I really think it's between people. For me, up front, it's too much. Over time, if we were together for like 6 months, then a year, you probably got access to everything anyway. Can you get this for me? What else can you do? So it just, for me, it depends. And for Jill, it's a never. Princess Alice, I'd only go on your PC to play games while you're asleep. Exactly. What other things do you think are self-care? That, it's really important. I think a decent relationship, fucking hell, what does decent mean? I hope you know what I mean by that. It's supportive. I want you to do well in life. I want you to do well in your career. I want to help you grow, is both ways. It's really important to make sure that we get all of that. Because should anything happen in a relationship, if you are totally reliant and not capable, don't have any money, you're fucking fucked, aren't you? So it's really important to make sure you have something to make sure you're okay. I know lots of very old standing slave-based relationships whereby one of the things that the master's done is any money that the slave gives them, let's say they do, that's put into an account. The slave may or may not know this, and that they are, that's saved up. So should anything go wrong, they have a large lump sum of money. I also know other slave contracts where somebody, and I really mean this, has been passed on to the next dominant, agreed by both of them, should one die or should anything happen. So they're permanently owned and permanently okay. And that sounds like the stuff of books, doesn't it? But I'm telling you, it does happen still. So that's around. Bun Butt says, introspection is very important for my self-care personally, especially in kink. Identifying and naming your feelings are very important to me too. Yeah, I hope I said that. Maybe I didn't say that clearly enough. I think having time to sit down, as a therapist, when people leave, or I say to, hey, you need to go, to some people, that happens both ways. One of the things I think that's very important is, one of the things I suggest is, what you could do is take this 15 minutes every week and hold it for yourself. Keep the 50 minutes in the diary, self-reflect introspectively, have a look at what's going on for you, and take that time. I actually think, as a top, if you tell your submissive to take half an hour every week to book an appointment with themselves in their diary and just to sit and reflect, is a really good idea. However, if you have somebody who has very serious trauma and they haven't got to grips with that trauma, the potential is, with when we sit still, that trauma can come up. And some people need to be busy in order to cope. So to say to somebody, sit down and do nothing for an hour, actually could be very damaging. So again, please be careful and know what's going on for your person and how they work. I have a task to do something that makes you feel good for 10 minutes every so often for my sub. I need to enforce it more though. And I think what you've got to be careful of is, what do you mean by makes you feel good, Jill? Because if we say I want you to do something that makes you feel good, someone might say, well, actually, mummy, daddy, sir, mistress, mister, I want to please you. No, that's not what I meant. I want you to look after yourself. I am. No, this is just about. So sometimes really clear guidelines are really important, because us submissives will twist them when we can, especially if we prefer to please than to look after ourselves. Domino, one of my slaves is like that. She can't sit still and can't stand silence. So meditation and breathing exercises can be really counterproductive for her, as is some yoga. So some people say, do yoga, do something really calming. Please be really careful about that stuff. When I see people professionally, and what they're told often is, oh, you need to do yoga or you need to do mindfulness. One of the worst things you can do for some people some of the time, it depends on their history. Moving meditation or dancing, says Jill. Yes, it could be, but moving meditation still allows for a lot of space to come up, because meditation is also about clearing your mind. And if your mind clears and you don't feel safe anymore, that's not particularly healthy. Dancing might be great if you really go for it with some really loud music that you really like, so you can get lost in the lyrics. Slightly different as well. So I think it's really important to say how we feel. I think it's really important to have meetings. You can have radar type meetings. Radar meetings, that's a fancy title. It just means sit down and have a chat about how you're both doing, about what you expect from a meeting, or how the 3 or the 4 of you are doing, and be bloody honest in those meetings. When, as a submissive meets a dominant, you meet as equals to work towards inequality. You do not meet as unequal to go towards anything else. You meet as equals, and the goal is inequality. If you believe in that kind of relationship, it depends if you are a kinkster or a lifestyler, slightly different. Jill, true, basically about reaching the flow state without the bad brain weasels doing the thing, which isn't always easy, is it? It makes a difference. So are there anything else that you would add to that about what you would want to do in some way, shape or form? I'm a big believer in really promoting people to take up a hobby, to do something, to still have something that they love in their lives, that they can do without the dominant for the dominant, and to look after themselves. And clearly all of these things really also come under self-care for dominance as well. But I really want to push home the part that says self-care is about being organized, being structured, trying to look at your time, managing your life. That's what self-care is about, because if you manage your life, you start to feel better. The other things are treats and nice to haves, and those treats and nice to haves might be spa days, although some people may say, fuck it. One person in particular here might be turning around saying, what do you mean spa day? I fucking have to have one every week. So I'm talking about Poppy there and a few other people. I need one of those every week. That is my self-care. What do you mean? So we really vary. So, but for others, it might be a treat. I have my nails done every 3 weeks. I don't particularly see it as a treat. I really like doing it. It's important. It depends what it means to you. I'm not bleaching my hair at the moment. I'm letting the roots grow out because my hair won't grow particularly well after chemo. So is that self-care? Yeah, I want my hair to grow. But do I feel happy about it? No. See, self-care and that care means very different things. To be fair, she does deserve it. And she was at a spa Friday and she feels attacked. Self-care and ritual practices. So Ritual practices, what do you mean by that? Could it be that you say a ritual? There are certain things that you have to do. There are certain ways that you do things before you go to bed and what you do. I use a sleep app, for example, to help me sleep. We're going to be talking about sleep care in a minute. It's really important to look after yourself. Sleep is one of the most important things. And when we first meet somebody, it's all well and good, because we do turn into these people that turn and say, oh no, I'm going to be up till 3 chatting to you because it's such good fun. And it's good. Our chemicals really help us do that. But after a while, we can't do it. You can't keep doing it. Those chemicals aren't flooding your body anymore. Reality starts to come in. Rituals can really matter as well. They make us feel nice. So it could be that you do love exercise, so you do a lot of it. Apologize, was in reference to the nails as in self-care ritual. Well, ritual they are because they're a pattern. I do have my nails done every 3 weeks. I have my lashes done every 2 to 3 weeks. Are they a ritual? I guess they make me feel nice. I like doing them. I've got tattooed hands and wrists. It feels more feminine for me to then have my nails done on top of that. And other people might say, no, that's fine. It doesn't matter what someone else says. It matters how I feel. And that's what we've really got to get in touch with. Because also as a dominant, if you keep saying to somebody, but you're fine, I like you this way, I like you this way, I like you this way. If the person doesn't like themselves that way, regardless of their gender, it doesn't help. It really doesn't help them. When I work with kids, especially athletes, when I watch coaches who say, you can do this, you've got this is okay, you can do this, guess what the child is saying or the athlete is saying in their head? They're nodding their head, but they're saying, I can't. So sometimes the pure force of positivity reiterates a negativity in someone else. And I see that happen in DS sometimes. So especially if somebody doesn't have a lot of self-confidence or doesn't like the way they look, and they're continuously told by somebody, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. Some might eventually change and say, I see that. Others becomes a toxic positivity, as Jill's saying, and they're just like, no, it doesn't work for me. So please understand who you're dealing with and work out how to deal with them. It really matters. If you get things like stomach cramps, you're not feeling well, or you've got pains or different things, take baths, have some Epsom salts, give yourself a self-massage, go for a massage. But also, if you've got some aches and pains, maybe go and see a physio or a chiro or someone along those lines as well. It's really, really important. Foundation meaning what, Dee Broker? Sorry, explain to me what you mean. Say foundation, what you mean by that. It could just be that we have time with friends. I'm coming up to Manchester is it July? I've already said to Poppy, can I come and stay with you? And I don't need to stay with Poppy because I can't afford a hotel, because believe me, I like a hotel. I'm going because I really want to see my friend. And I want to go to Manchester as well. So it's really important. Talking with my sub and my dom daily is self-care. Yes, I see that as well. Combing out my hair properly, says Jill, is a self-care ritual. It comes down to my backside, so it takes some serious doing, I bet. Yeah, it matters, doesn't it? Taking charge, feeling in control, especially at the moment, we've got a war going on, things are happening, people feel very out of control. Doing small things that help us control really helps us. So like, for example, it could be that your self-care is taking time out from social media. Unplug, turn that fucking shit off. And if you are reading things from The Sun, I'm really sorry, or certain newspapers, they are such bad misinformation that actually make you feel worse. Please pick what you read and where it comes from. Fucking COVID, meaning I'm still in isolation. Oh, I'm sorry, is that what you've got? Not so nice. Domina, July Manchester extravaganza. And I can't wait to see Domina, and I don't know who's coming, but everyone else who's coming with her as well. You know, that's really nice. Jim says, make your bed and start your day with a task achieved. Do you know what? Even break it down even further. If you're struggling to self-care, you will be there, Jerry. You will be. So if you're struggling to do some self-care, stop setting yourself huge tasks like even make my bed. Take everything back down to a minimalistic level. Can I sit up right now? What's better for me as a human being? I'll sit up. Can I swish my legs around and sit up? What's better for me as a human being? Yeah, I can do that. Could I be back to bed? No. Let's sit up, it's better for me. Can I stand up? Because then by the time you get up, you've achieved 3 tasks. When you are suffering from depression or exhaustion or chronic fatigue syndrome, anything like that, bring everything down to really minimal tasks and pat yourself on the back for every single one you achieve by saying, this is what's better for me as a human being. Find glasses, so I'm not already wearing them. Yep, that makes a difference. Find my trousers, but don't set yourself up for failure. Make sure your trousers are in the room if you can. Make sure your trousers are over bed if you can. All these little things help. I make my bed every day and display cushions. Yeah, I make my bed mainly every day, and I would agree with the principle of making your bed is a really good thing. It makes us feel better. It's well known as a military technique. It comes in, it's really handy. Alarm goes off and immediately get out of bed and stand and stretch. That's good if you can bounce up. Some people can't. So it's important. A ladder works much better if the rungs are closely spaced. Small steps can get you up there. Agreed. And also if they're evenly spaced. If you try and do too much and too little, you trip, you fall. So nice, even, small spaces. Idiopathic hypersomnia, which is CFS on steroids. I really get that. So it's about finding your ways to look okay for you, to look after yourself that you know. And one thing I always say to any of my clients, especially if they have different things that are wrong with them, for them, what works for you? That's what we need to work out, not what works for the rest of the world. Usually ones I took off when I get into bed. You're talking about your trousers there, I'm assuming. I managed to turn Zoom on this morning. Yay me. That's a start, isn't it? It's good. Congrats, Tempest. Angel, getting up in the morning is my biggest task of the day. I guess I'll try the mini tasks. It's really small, honestly, just a couple of things. One of the great things about Do is it takes 0.2 seconds to make the bed. That's another thing about self-care, actually. When you turn and give yourself a list of everything you've got to do every day, you tend to exaggerate the time it takes. Fucking, I've got to empty the dishwasher. It takes me 15 minutes. No, it doesn't. No dishwasher takes 15 minutes to empty. On average, it's somewhere between 2 to 4 minutes. That's it. But we make everything big. Oh, I've got to make my bed. Oh, it's such hard work. It takes forever. It doesn't. It takes under 10 minutes, as long as you have got it down and you know how to do it. Clearly not if you've got chronic fatigue syndrome or you've got something that hurts you, and that's different as well. So it depends. Again, take all of these things into account. So self-care is about understanding what works for you. And one of the most important things, and I just had a massive write-up on this as well, is about boundaries. Boundaries are a way of setting a big red love hearts and infinity line that says, I'm going to do what works for me and I'm going to do what works for you. And I'm not going to do what works for me and I'm not going to do what doesn't work for you. They're a four-way thing. We need to be educated about ourselves in order to hold boundaries. So part of self-care is educating yourself about your own values, and about how you feel about things and about how you see things. Some of your values are borrowed. So when you grow up, your values are borrowed from your family, from your peers and different people. Sometimes you might keep some of those, but sometimes it's really important for you to learn what your values are. Dory says, if you don't have the time, I'm fond of things, if you don't have the energy to take a shower, at least wipe off with a cloth, or if you don't have the energy to cook, eat the ingredients. Yes, just start small things. I keep some wet wipes next to my bed for those days where I stink, but just can't stand up for long enough to have a shower. Wet flannels, soap, basics, real basics. It's good enough. That's what we've got to worry about. Okay, so the next thing we're talking about is chastity belts, cock cages, castration, and fantasies around all of that stuff. Unless anyone's got a self-care thing they want to say. So what has anyone got to say about chastity, or about whether they like the idea of that, or about wearing cages or chastity belts, or about having some kind of psychological impact about how you do things, and about castration? So Jill, I keep, it dovetails nicely into my dominant control kink. Very, very hard limit, says Daisy. Jacob, I'm wearing my chastity device for this session. Just don't show us. MB loves it. Key holding, yeah, we'll talk about that as well. So key holders as well, we'll talk about that in a minute. I love the idea of having a psychological impact on someone by key holding for him, says Mark. And 475-613-2193, that was quite good. Hard limit for me, really important. It's really important to know what's okay. Angel W says NMK, which I'm assuming means not my kink. I might be wrong. Jacob says I'm wearing pants too. Thank you. Jill, however, for me, chastity is a hard limit as a sub. Redness Cell says, I do not like the idea very much, but with no detectable sex life, it's not really practicable. Yeah. Angel's right, so not my kink. Happy to key hold, but being locked, hell no. It's interesting, isn't it? The double standards we hold sometimes. I don't know if you saw, Not my kink either, says Tempest. Look, I'm going to go for the extreme. Let's start at the extreme end of the table. So recently, I don't know if you saw this, but this happened in England. There were 7 people arrested. Has everyone heard of this recently in a North London property? SC, I've enjoyed it in past relationships. I wish I knew how long the impact of chastity piercings would last, though. Still cause issues years later. Yeah, I can't get my nipples pierced or whatever. Like, I just don't heal in different things. You have to be very careful. So we're talking about the extreme levels or the lighter levels in a minute. So Jacob says no. So recently in the UK, somebody called Eunuch Maker was arrested after castrating men live from his flat on video. So this only happened a few weeks ago in February. What, says Jill? Yo, says Deb. Absolutely. He was 44 years old. He was called the Eunuch Maker. I'm referring to this a little bit. Was it consensual? It was absolutely consensual. He has made claims that he has eunuchized, castrated dozens of men in his flat on a regular basis. And he does the procedures on a pay-per-view and people pay to watch. That seems unhygienic. You think? Yes, and no one was killed, which, considering numbers, is astounding. Yes, because actually he did his research, he didn't kill anyone, and he was hygienic. He had quite clinical settings in the flat by all intents and purposes, because the risk of castration is death. The likelihood of a bleed out, the likelihood of, oh my God, the likelihood of an infection is so massive. And that was another one, Cinders. I did not hear of that. I did hear about the guy who was arrested for amputating another man's leg as part of an agreement. Yep, and he was left in a park. Somebody saying goodbye privately. Goodbye, see you later. Jill, what the hell? He has better post-op outcomes than some surgeons I've met. He does. So that was another one. But the guy who had his leg amputated did die. He bled out in the end, didn't he? So the other guy was arrested for murder, causing a death. He died, the leg dude. See, said it in a very similar way. The leg dude died. I'm really sorry if anyone knows or anything else. It's absolutely horrific. But this guy, and there were loads of men arrested, 6 others. They were in their 30s to 60s. And it was in Finsbury Park. It was happened in December. It came out. What they're talking about here is nullification. So nullification is the extreme end. This isn't even just castration. This is nullification, which means I do not wish to identify as anything sexually. So what I want is to be closed off and shut off. They leave a hole for the urethra so someone can pee. That's it. So it's nullification when they castrate the whole penis and the testicles. The fact that all of these guys lived, honestly, is a feat in itself. Not for me, fucking impressive. The man charged with another allegedly sawing off another man's leg. Yes, that's one of them. What about the hormone balance? Oh, listen, sperm, everything is still going to be. No one thinks about the long-term implications of doing this. No one thinks about post-operatively. It's a bit like having a baby. When we have a baby, we think, oh, 9 months of pregnancy, or 8 by the time you know. And you're like, woohoo, let's go for it. And then you go, I know, I'll start the first thing. I'll get some 0 to 3 month clothes or newborn baby clothes. I'll get some whatever bits and pieces. I'll sort out all of those things. You never think about having a 20-year-old. You never think about having a 30-year-old. You never think about, you just don't think about that thing. You think about the now. There is a disease where people see body parts as the enemy and not belong to their body. Yes, there are. None of these people had that. This was very much about, as I say, nullification. And actually the guy that did it, and he is an amputee himself. He's in his late 50s and he's actually from Norway. And he claims to have carried out 58 procedures. And he wanted to have it done as well. Because he wanted like a Ken doll. That was his basis of what he was saying. Some people like to, there are a couple of famous people. There was a famous guy who, I don't know if you remember, he got himself castrated and then people ate, they fried it all up and ate it. Some can't eat it themselves, some do. Cinders, it might not be the first. Oh God, not the first. There are hundreds before him. This is by no means the first. There is a 29-year-old mistress on FetLife who calls herself a gelder. First thing I would get is running shoes. Jill says a wheelchair. Yeah, no, it's absolutely horrific. you've got to be very careful. You've got to, honestly, even if you have some kind of fantasy about this, is this a good idea? It never is a good idea. I mean, it can go horrifically wrong. The long-term implications about it are absolutely horrific. And one of the most famous nullos, that's what they call themselves as well, when I was talking about how he ate things, was Meo Sugiyama. And Meo Sugiyama did exactly that. The paying guests who came along ate his genitals in 2012. So they were invited to the whole operation, the whole thing, watched, and they all ate, cooked it up afterwards and shared. They apparently it was all garnished with mushrooms and parsley. So that's the more extreme end, isn't it? So Daisy's feeling sick, and Zoe's going, nope. And so he's going, I feel sick. But Jill, yes, bone density, heart disease. Oh my God, there are thousands of different things. What? No garlic? No garlic. Absolutely not. Parsley and mushrooms, and that was it. Opal fruit. Nope. No coriander, gross. Parsley. Yeah, I mean the cock's fine, but parsley. I mean it's meat. At the end of the day, it's meat. Especially if you look at the how a penis is, what it's made up of. It's quite spongy, and how it feels. I mean, I'm not going to imagine eating it. But let's have a little look about chastity and what it means, and let's have a little look about what we think about chastity and where it comes from. There are lots of stories around that chastity has been around for ages, that chastity used to be done for women, that chastity used to be just for women, and that when men went off to the war and wherever it was they were going, I'm moving on, Taff, I promise, and where we're going, what people did is that they left their women in chastity belts, right? What's interesting is, though we used to talk about it and say there are thousands, there aren't that many chastity belts that have actually been found. There are a couple, there are some claims, but there aren't as many as we think. Robin Hood Men in Tights was my first introduction to chastity devices. Yeah, Domina, love your sessions. They always give me so many ideas. Don't have any of those. Those are not ideas, all right? They are not ideas to go down for sure. Not a good idea. So a chastity belt or a chastity device is more about stopping somebody being sexual. That's the idea, so that we can lock someone up, to protect women from rape or marauders. I read that it was essentially a medieval meme and that they were never actually used, says Victoria Jack. PM me if you're interested. For legal reasons, that was a joke. I understand. So was mine, I hope. There are very many, honestly, there aren't many found. What people were really worried about, especially during the Crusades, is I want to preserve your faithfulness, or I want to preserve you. Aren't they nice, these men? I want to preserve you for to make sure that you are not attacked in any way, shape, or form, should some Vikings walk in or anything else as well. So it was interesting that there's lots of tales about this, but there aren't that many found, like in The Last Duel, exactly like in The Last Duel. There are there's a chastity belt in the Doge's palace that says it's from the 16th century, but is it, isn't it? People don't know, but it has got holes in the right places, possibly is. However, they can't be dated as well. God knows how they date them. Wonder what DNA they'd find on. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Gallant says, if I'm not here next week, please call the police. Oh, Gallant, we will make sure, honestly. Because only the vagina is important. Actually, what you find with most chastity belts, they also do the anus as well. They do both. The old ones, if you look at any of the designs, have holes and holes. I mean, if your shitting wasn't particularly on the needle, as they say, not a good idea. Infection and all sorts of different things as well around skin. Chastity belts just seem selfish to me. Let me play. Raven, my sub is in mental chastity rather than physical, because finding a comfortable cage has been a real problem. In fact, it deepens the bonds because it's trust-based. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It's also to stop masturbation. It's also to stop self-pleasure. And of course, chastity can go to a much stronger thing. If we're talking about nullification, we can also talk about we can also talk about the clitoris, and the amount of female genital mutilation that there is still really high. And I've spoken about that before. Celibacy is my chastity. Yes, as long as it's a choice, and that's different. And sometimes it isn't. And we talk about incels and involuntary celibacy. Some people are positively involuntary celibate. Some people are not. It just depends. I've done a whole session before on incels. It's really interesting. Old age is mine. Our sex drive doesn't necessarily go away, but the less we have sex, the more we feel like it. Actually, that's quite a normal when it goes on for long enough. So what you've got to be really, really careful though. So the problem with a lot of old chastity belts was the metal and the type of metal. So if they were worn and if they were around, they had to be changed. The abrasiveness, the long-term wear of them was not good, because people ended up with infections, abrasive wounds, sepsis, and potentially death. As a sapiosexual, do I really have a choice? Depends who you meet. Jacob says, use one that fits well. Jill says, I've never found a device that would actually physically work for me in terms of preventing an orgasm. I think it very much depends. If someone were to staple you up completely, it's very possible. That said, you could rub and move, but unless you're into pain, if you're completely stapled shut, even over your clitoris, it's quite hard, because unless you're into pain, there'll be an awful lot of pain there. Depends. So we've really got to be careful about that. So that was the idea about how it, and they were big chunky things, and they still are, a lot of them. And it's very much about how you feel conscious about them, how you have them, and what it means. Obviously, this needs to be done with consent. Some chastity belts come with insertions where you actually wear them and something goes inside the anus or the vagina. So some are insertables as well. A numbing agent maybe. Yeah, no, I think anything's possible with an insertable, with enough numbing agent or something in it, or an injection. You never know, but I'm not going to go into that. That would be horrific to start talking about. So there are all sorts of different things that you can wear and you can have. And they've been talked about in history for quite a long time. There are different levels of chastity, I think, as well. So you can think about whether somebody just has a mental form of chastity that says, I trust you, don't sleep with anybody else. You could call that monogamy. You might not. But however, you might not. It might just be you also not allowed to masturbate. You're not allowed to touch yourself. You're not allowed to do these things. With cages, please be careful. And with any form of chastity device, you've got to fit in it. It's got to be comfortable. It's got to be cleanable. It's also got to be unlockable. What people don't think about is a hospital visit or an accident. If a really bad accident happens, somebody should have the fucking key on them. We have a few nurses here who have worked in ER, or in the A&E, as if we're going to go for the UK term. Please be careful, because if you are really, really locked and you don't have a key and something happens and you have an accident, if that key isn't on you as a person, you've really got to think about how quickly someone can get that key there. Seriously, because it can cause all sorts of, please be aware of it. Someone has a really bad accident on a motorbike or something else, and you've got a very big, heavy metal cage on, and that shit starts to go inside you and swelling happens. We really need to get it off quickly in the ER room or in the A&E, and you'll be surprised. So what are people saying? Metal seems to be the most hygienic. Bolt cutters, yeah, and with swelling, do you want to go with that? It's bad enough getting your wedding ring off or a ring off if you have an accident and your finger starts to swell. That is your cock and balls underneath there. Have a think about that. Or the electric app ones that people were ransom with. Yes, yep, they are there as well. People were ransom with all sorts of different things. So you can unlock them electronically. 8 rings and a padlock worked for me to prevent orgasms, so long as it was a small one closed high, which meant I could easily access my kit, which I need access to if making myself come. Yeah, and I know many a person who has lots of rings. I also know people who've got massive infections from having rings, trying to expand the gauge of the rings that they have. Steelworks is a really good, they have all sorts of really fantastic chastity devices that are all to do with piercings. And so, and you can have piercings over the top, like a metal piece, or all the way down. You've got to be able to shit, you've got to be able to piss. You've got to make sure, though, that you can insert things. Because, for example, if you have thrush, if you have something else, you still need to put cream on, to get a capsule in, to do something. Yes, you can swallow antibiotics for some of these things, but a lot of these things are treated internally upwards. So again, really be careful about you having access to your own body. I know it sounds really sexy, it can be really good, and it can be. There are a lot of interesting psychological effects of having that sort of chastity. So it might be as well, if it's not mental, that you ask someone to wear a cage every so often, or about every so often. Or it might be that somebody says, please can I come, please can I orgasm, and we're asking. It might be an asking thing. Or it might be light, a lighter denial, a lighter permission. And of course we go all the way up to the top, where people are wearing things all the time, permanently wearing them. Luna's having a weird dream. And so, we go from one extreme to the other. There are all sorts of cages and chastity belts that you can buy, and you can buy chastity belts as much as you can buy Anything else? Mark, hypnotically induced erectile dysfunction or inhibited orgasm are a thing and can also be a problem that needs to be fixed if the relationship ends. Yeah, some people can't be hypnotized, some people can be. Should you give someone that much power over you if they disappear? I feel the same about when people put their orgasms to somebody else. However, even with hypnosis and with all of those things, I'm also going to say that eventually that will dissipate. It does disappear if it isn't reinforced. And people say, oh, you need to go for therapy and you need help. I work with some survivors of incredible cults. I work with a group of survivors from the Jesus Army, and a lot of that is sexual, physical, mental, and emotional abuse. And although it helps to have therapy, it might make it happen a bit quicker. A lot of their healing will be done on its own, but not necessarily for the trauma, for the cult aspect of it. Mature male for chastity, great for fits, comfort, and parental longevity. Sweet Cherry, that sounds like call to the fire brigade. No one wants that in A&E. Exactly, that's my point. Please be careful about these things. Key is always with me, no exceptions. I'm really glad, Alice, really important. Zoe, I'm not to cock and ball torture, but I'd love to see someone walk towards a man with bolt cutters. Jacob, the person in chastity should always have access to a safety key. I agree. At Zone Red, Zoe Red, sorry, I was going to say Zone Red. Zoe's turned into a zone. Mature metal makes the most affordable and sustainable devices. I carry a sealed envelope in my pocket at all times in case of emergencies. But a sealed envelope saying what? Like, you know, here's a code, please phone this person. If it's hours, it can be a big difference. Hours, you know, it really can. And if the metal moves or something happens and it snaps, you can break a penis. That's very serious. And PA for male chastity, you can still use them. That's the problem. It depends where they're placed and how they work. It depends how they're done. Safi, you can also use hypnosis to put into chastity, but refresh it each week. Yep, as I was saying, it does go eventually, but of course you've also got the people, as Poppy's saying, is sometimes people will also stay into these things. I've met people who've come out of very narcissistic, abusive relationships who haven't been able to orgasm for up to 2 years because of how it's been tied in and what's happened. Haven't even been able to brush their own hair. I worked with somebody who couldn't brush their hair, couldn't brush their teeth, because all of these things were influenced and involved with the other person. Cinders, at Zoe, honestly, bolt cutters might not work. It depends on the type of metal. Exactly. Bolt cutters come in various grades to cut through different thickness. I doubt the NHS keep a kit of different ones. Yep. A normal fire truck has a pneumatic one. Maybe don't go that far. Brian, good morning. Glad to be here again. Glad to have you. Cinders, it's just because someone else said bolt cutters. Ayrshire says a key. Okay, yep, with you. Luke, I had that once. I didn't realise it had been rubbing badly. Ooh, I had the spare key. I don't even want to read the rest of this out, Luke. I tell you, I love the way you're covering a pillow. Is that over your crutch at the moment because of the reminders? I thought I'd stick out till I saw the Dom. Never again. Luckily, it healed okay now. That's a reminder about the safety of having a spare. Please lubricate them. Please make sure they fit. Try them for short periods of time and extend the periods of time that you have them. Don't fall into the fact of, oh my God, I'm in chastity. That's it forever. It's on. Please go progressive. Zoe, would it not be a good idea using a padlock with a code instead of a key? Then a text could solve the issue. Yep, as long as you've got service. Good luck in a war zone. Good luck in London sometimes, actually. If you bloody tried that, Jesus, I get the worst service in London compared to anywhere. Apart from the dangers of giving someone the power control over oneself with a chastity device, you can talk about how chastity can add to a power exchange. Yep, I'm coming on to that, all of that in a minute. I like the idea of giving someone a key holder control over access to my genitals, so the key holder decides if and when I can have an erection. Hygiene unlocks are a thing. They are. Got to be able to do it. Raven Black, try the frozen bottle with a key in it. A great idea. Not a great idea. No, not if it takes hours. Having a key isn't always the answer. Once after a record of locked for 68 days. Oh no. If you don't regularly use the lock to unlock it, they can freeze, they can rust, they can do all sorts of things. Please be careful. I had to use a hacksaw. I'm really glad it didn't slip or anything. Man, Cinders, and what if the wearer is unconscious? They wouldn't be able to share the code with health teams, etc. Correct? And somebody privately says, my own celibacy, because the lack of a partner that turns me in causes me to be harmful to my own vagina out of frustration. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry to hear that, because that's no good. You know, that's not healthy, is it? So cages can be done in all sorts of different ways. You can get open-ended ones. You can get electric shock cages. a hacksaw will be a better choice over an angle grinder. Actually, at the end of the day, in hospital, that is where they go as well. You can get electroshock cages. You can get cages with attachments that can go into your urethra or into your anus, and the same for vaginas. They can go into the vaginal tunnel, or they can go into your anus as well. You can get them in plastic, you can get them in rubbers, you can get them in all sorts of synthetics, you can get them in metals. Maybe pick one when you first start that is gentle, that moves, that isn't going to hurt you too much. You can start to get used to it. Plastic and resin are definitely the most lightweight ones to start with. When you start to go up into metal, they're heavier and heavier and heavier. Yeah, but insertables are kind of short-term wear. I fucking hope so. I read somewhere that somebody was so proud of themselves because they were wearing their butt plug continuously for like 20 days. And I was like, but you can't have done. You have to have shat at some point in that time. So like, it doesn't mean continuous wear, does it? And we've got to remember, if we're using those muscles and using them in certain ways, please be careful, please be careful. Impacted bowels. Yeah, no, I agree with you. So it's just it's not healthy. Please think about the long-term use, but we don't, because we don't understand the long-term use either. So there are all sorts of different things we can do. We can get open cages. The lock can bang against the metal in the cage. We have to be aware of that. We have to be aware of that from a sound perspective, because if you're walking around and you are clinking, if you're not wearing a medical grade metal, please be aware that you will set off a fucking security alarm system. Bear that in mind. If you're going to get on a plane, off we go. Excuse me, sir, can you take that off? Why have you got that on? What will happen? And again, you will require some form of wire cutters. So also, if you start to get into things that are fabric and you start to get into leather, those sort of things, they're porous materials, they're whole bacteria, they're really not as good. Or work in a prison, learn from my mistakes. Yes, if you're into forensic psychology and you have to walk into a prison, or some American schools even, you have to go through a metal detector. And in fact, if you work on a psych ward and you're wearing a lot of metal, they'll tell you to take it off. They really will. I've noticed I need to readjust myself a lot more when I'm wearing a chastity cage. Yep, you will. And insert after the check. Oh dear, eternity collars work too. Yes, they do. And of course, people can make things themselves. Jesus, please don't do that. Please buy something that's been tested. You don't know how dangerous that will be. However, that's me being really negative. Why would somebody want to wear a chastity belt? For lots of fucking amazing and incredible and good reasons. It shows a real love and affection and care and a promise to somebody. It does show that you're not sexually interested in somebody else. Of course, if you keep your key, that can happen as well. We wear them for different reasons. That you know what not to wear to the airport when you fly here. Yeah, Zoe, an old piercing ring of mine has set off a metal detector at a concert I went to. It's not fun explaining with a crowd around that I have a hood piercing. Yeah, it becomes very personal, doesn't it? How much do you want to out yourself in that moment to say, I have a piercing? That's it. Sorry? I've got a clip piercing, okay? And like, now everybody knows. And if you're there with your family, you might not have wanted them to know. You might not. I did it really zoned out, NMK. Ember, when you really want to make it happen, you figure it out. Lock types, metal types, security keys, etc. I agree with you. It can be a really positive bond between two people. It can be a loving bond between two people. Why would somebody wear one? It helps us remain celibate, but it also shows devotion and it proves celibacy. My anklet fell off at the airport and they couldn't understand it was soldered on. Set off, sorry. I have a long history of these interactions. I was young. Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because if it is soldered on, why have you done that? Well, because I'm in that what sort of relationship? And then you can even start to get into, well, are you safe? You're clearly 20 years old and I'm really worried about you. No, honestly, I am a known slave, but I'm really happy to be. Oh my God, here it goes, and here in an interesting situation. So whatever you do, be aware of the consequences. And Beth says, absolutely, yes, an amazing bond. So yes, it can be really, really beautiful. It can be really lovely. So there are different reasons to why people wear them and what it means. It's also a form of love. I'm atoning. It could be atoning for sin. It could be all sorts of stuff. It could be even to have their own self-protection and their own self-care if they're not feeling very good about it. It can be really good. Some people are really good with abstinence. It can help them focus. It can help them feel focused, as in a way they can focus in their lives. And it brings a sense of calm because nothing is going to happen. I'm okay. I'm wearing this. This is it now. Please make sure as well, if you want to end up with a very small chastity device, if you're a penis owner, start larger, learn to go smaller because boy, yeah, My anklet heard my own kit. Jerry, wash your ears out. Wash your ears out. So it really depends. It does show something for fidelity. It does show something for atonement. It does show a very nice bond between two people that says, I want to do this for you. And I want to do this for me. And the permanent shrink, it isn't a thing. With most things, it's actually really crap to say that a woman who's had a baby has a loose cunt. It just isn't a thing. Yes, she's fitted a bowling ball through it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't then come back. Everyone tightens. So let's remember that. And different people are different tightnesses at different times. The same with sizes of everything as well. So please think about it. I think a lot of people can get quite mellow if they can't do anything sexually. That can be really good. A lot of people can have a high level of frustration, first of all. It really impacts our psychology, but it can really impact our psychology in a really positive way, unless you tear the muscle internally. Oh, no, please be careful. That's very different. That's a more extreme thing, isn't it? So what I'm saying with all of this is it can be really lovely. It shows a devotion. I think for me personally, I don't really want to go to a key holder who holds numerous keys. And that's a very different relationship to going to somebody who holds your key because they care for you. I think those things are different. Now, I'm not talking about multiple key holders because in a poly relationship, there are some professional dominatrixes that will hold keys at a price, at a cost. That can be really nice as well. Jacob says, I've heard it makes the chastity wearer more submissive and attentive. It can do. It can make some people very annoyed as well. But yes, it can do. It can feel really lovely for people to say, yes, mistress, yes, master, whoever that other person is. It really varies. And for some people, it doesn't work in the same way. It just depends on who the person is. It can also make brats very bratty. Yes, that was my point. So it depends on the human being that we're talking about. Long-term chastity wear, if you're really doing long term and you're really proud of yourself and not taking something off for an incredible amount of days, really, medically, what anyone would say to that is release yourself every so often. Make sure everything is cleaned, clean what you're using. And really, please make sure that it's healthy because we can't always guarantee. I mean, people go on about piss play and urine play, that it's sterile. Read my piece about urine play. Urine is not sterile. Not sterile. Let me reiterate that. Urine is not sterile. It isn't. It's just not. It's like that's a very old piece of research that said that, and it's not in date anymore. Healthy every so often to have an erection, yep, or to even have an orgasm. I get that you might want to not, and that's fine. That's really okay as well, and they're very good for us. Jerry says, surely if you want to go into a voluntary chastity, a leather or alternative device would work as well. No. So why not? Because leather is porous. So any porous material that you start to put on or wear can hold bacteria. You can't clean it properly. So you need a plastic, you need a silicone, you need something that you could literally put in a dishwasher. And as Jill says, chafing. If you put some lube on or creams on or different things, if you've got metal, some plastics, not all, some plastics, make sure they come from a whole mold. Alternative can be mind, alternative can be direction, alternative can be something else. As someone will know, I recently in November spent 21 days in ICU. 2 days after getting to a more general ward, a wee nurse brought back my silver and gold necklaces and then a bag of other 12mm genital rings with the words, you'll know what these are. Oh, bless. Yes, yeah, that's part of the thing as well. So please be careful. It does make people more submissive and attentive. No, it does for some people some of the time. It doesn't make everyone. It can make other people really irritable, pissed off, and hating their lives. We need to find out. For you, that is the case, and maybe for a few people that you know. So I think we have to be so careful about it does, it always, it will, because I really appreciate that it does for you and maybe some people that you know. For some people, it's absolutely the worst decision to do. It does make people more submissive and attentive, but it can also send them the other way if you don't provide appropriate attention. You need to replace sexual attention with other positive attention types to keep everything positive. I really appreciate that something still needs to happen even if you're not having sex. And we can go to orgasm denial and other things as well. That makes a difference. I've heard from the older subs benefit from more regular orgasms to stop prostates when in chastity. You'd be absolutely right, Raven. So the other thing that comes into thing is age. Just about to go there. So I'm an old woman. I am postmenopausal. I'm 56 years old. Not only that, because I've had chemo, I'm permanently in the menopause because of the drugs that I'm on, because my cancer is estrogen receptive. So I take a load of shit and I'm postmenopausal. Anyone here postmenopausal? Who owns a cunt? Yep, quite a few people. If you don't use your cunt postmenopausally, you fucking will lose it potentially. We can get drier, we can also get wetter. We're not bingoing. We're not. Sometimes, for those of you that don't know me, some people play bingo about the things I say. The problem is, if you're postmenopausal and you don't have regular sex, sex can actually hurt more. Erections can be harder to get. And prostate cancer can come into this, other things. Like, it really is a big deal to make sure that we are okay. Vaginismus is also similar. So vaginismus is a psychological condition that can happen to anyone at any age as long as they own a vagina, the same as dyspareunia. So if you have vaginismus or erectile dysfunction or dyspareunia, please go and see a qualified psychosexual psychotherapist to help you with those things. Vaginismus can absolutely make you tighten up. And sometimes you have to start with something as small as like a Q-tip, not a Q-tip because they're sharp and you've got a cotton bit on the end, but that small. So we use cervical dilators, we use specialist dilators and different things to help people open up and stretch and do different things. So vaginismus is the involuntary tightening of the vaginal opening. Can absolutely close up and be very painful for both. So we've got to be very careful when we hit age for all sorts of different things. I'll talk to someone about choking today. And, you know, like when you choke someone or you do blood chokes, it's actually much more dangerous the older you get, or the higher your blood pressure is, different things. So please take into account everything you know about that person. And also, if the person does have like erectile dysfunction, it might help them soothe and calm for a while. It could be really handy. However, long term, it doesn't fix the erectile dysfunction for them. They need to be able to play. They need to be able to do things to help with that, rather than using this as a temporary solution. I've both had dyspareunia, and yeah, I've seen the appropriate therapist and have a bunch of exercises and ongoing. Yes, that's the really important part of it. Really, really, really important. Make sure that the person that you see is a psychosexual psychotherapist, because it takes a specific form of training to do that. Do you need vaginal penetration to keep your cunt healthy, or can clitoral orgasms keep this ticking over? Nope, it's about penetration, because it's about the walls, it's about us getting drier. Orgasms help because, of course, the way, if you're talking, it depends on the sort of orgasm you have, actually, as if you are a cunt owner. It depends on the sort of orgasm you have and where you feel them and how they happen. For some people, there is a moving of the walls inside. It's very complete. For some, that's the internal clitoral part where you get throbbing in certain areas. For some, it's utterly clitoral end based. For others, it's very internal and goes everywhere else. So you have to be very I would certainly promote the use of dildos and or vibrators if you want an active sex life with less pain. And for some people, they will get no pain whatsoever and they'll be absolutely okay. Depends on the owner of the cunt, basically. So we do have to be careful. Jill, in my case, also a skin condition which makes pap smears, IUD replacement kind of tricky. Yeah, I get that. So again, it doesn't have to be a huge dildo. It doesn't have to be anything else. But if you think about the average person you sleep with, if you have penis and vagina type sex and you want penis and POV, yes, using something is still a good idea to keep ourselves moving inside, because vaginal atrophy is an actual thing. If you don't believe me, look it up. Vaginal atrophy. I don't want that. So we need to think about those things. If you're not having sex for a long period of time, please make sure you use your cunt so it is usable for you. And that's not some stupid thing that we say. It's vaginal atrophy is the thing, especially post-menopause. Yeah, it makes a difference. Have I put anyone off their food yet with everything I've been saying all day? Right, let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about sleep, and let's talk about sleep hygiene. Basically, there's lots of research on sleep hygiene. What does sleep hygiene mean? Sleep hygiene means the practices we use in order to sleep better. There are loads of apps. I've done this on purpose. On my phone, where are my health apps? So there are loads that you can have. You've got Snore Lab. That's the small one down the bottom. I personally use this one, which is called Shut Eye. I find it really effective, really helpful. I mean, it said I got 82% worth of good sleep last night, which isn't bad at all. It also said that I chewed 8 times. I wonder why. I snored 13 times. My animals were heard 4 times. There was environmental noise 1 time, and there was random noise 15 times. I have no risk of sleep apnea. It's very low. That's quite interesting. I had one suspect clip, so I listened to those things to make sure. Did you know that in the UK they call it your vaginal vault after a hysterectomy? Well, it makes sense. I used a Fitbit monitor for quite a while. It was useful. Have you seen the recent reports on Fitbits? Some people are getting burnt. They're saying, please check what Fitbit you've got and send it back if necessary. Can you, right, so hang on, I've clearly missed a few things. Vaginal moisturizers are sometimes a thing. Moving on, they are really important. There are all sorts of vaginal moisturizers that you can take. You can insert, you can use pessaries, you can use creams, and you can use natural remedies. Can you get a vaginal prolapse if you stop having sex or using internal toys? No, not if you stop so much. That's more pressure and using the vagina in a different way. Looks like your dog's awake, probably. I've got a few. I've got 3. Not that one, says Jill. The optical light on any fixed watch can burn you. Yes, that's what's just happened. I didn't have sex for 7 years and went at my dom. It was difficult. Yes. So I personally use shut eye because it has a sleep apnea part of it. That's why I think it's slightly better. Other ones do have, loads are available. I use that one because I'm a fat woman and I worry more about sleep apnea because I don't want sleep apnea. So I use shut eye. There are plenty of others that you can use, but that's the one I use, shut eye. It records and does all of those things. So there are lots of things about sleep, which is quite interesting. And we can feel tired for lots and lots of reasons. If you are tired and you are not feeling so great and you're not sleeping well, please go and get checked out biologically, okay? It really matters. You could have anemia, which is a lack of iron in your blood. I have sleep apnea and it sucks. Literally, it stops you breathing. Yeah, it's one thing I'm more scared of. And of course, we can get all sorts of sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is when you kind of stop breathing in your sleep. You sort of go, and then you catch your breath afterwards. And it's really bad for our hearts and it's really bad for us. For some people, it's not a higher risk, so we don't have to worry too much. And for some people, they might have to wear masks and all sorts of different things. Other than that, I have perfect sleep, not that it helps. It varies, doesn't it? If you have a really heavy period, if you lose blood, if you've got other conditions, please be checked out for anemia, because anemia means you really don't always sleep very well. And sleep apnea is also one of them. It's really loud snoring and it fucks up your blood oxygen levels. It is often related to weight, but not all the time either. Big necks cause more of a problem. I can't remember what the measurement is. Really can't remember what it is. There's a measurement. They say if your neck is over that, you are much more likely at risk of sleep apnea. Oh, can we see the sleep app insignia thingy, whatever it's called? Hang on, I'll just go there. I really can't read things. Honestly, I need to put my glasses on. It's called Shut Eye. It's blue. It's that one there. Can you see? I don't know if you can see well. I don't know if I'm showing that particularly well. It's the one that's called Shut Eye. And it's got a little white moon in the top corner. It's called Shut Eye. I didn't know being anemic affects sleep. I thought it was the menopause only. Nope, it's good old anemia. Can't remember the measurements. I know I've lost all cred. Fuck me, I should really know these things off the top of my heart. In the US, it's 15 inches. It's not a definite, it's a guide, because clearly different people. Men 17, women 16. I did know that, but I still Googled because I never trust myself. I'd forgotten, honestly. So, okay, so around 17, 16 inches. So, you know, you're at a greater risk. However, get yourself a decent sleep app like Shut Eye, and it will sometimes, if it says this is a risk, sleep apnea, snore, you can listen and you can hear whether you stop breathing or not. You can, because you get this. If you've ever slept with someone with sleep apnea, that point when they start to breathe again is actually quite scary if you're a human being who lives with someone with it. And then, of course, we've got the masks and different things that we can wear. There are some things that you can buy that says, shove this tiny thing up your nose. If you've got sleep apnea, no, those things don't work. I'm the only person in my immediate family without sleep apnea. Yeah, no, I get it. Apple only, meh. Oh, I'm sorry, but there are other good ones. Look for an app that also has a sleep apnea principle. Master has it badly. It is really frightening, isn't it? It's Shut Eye free. Yes, Shut Eye is free, and you can pay to have it upgraded as well. So it's really difficult. You feel so exhausted the next day if you have something like sleep apnea. It's not good for you. You might have a problem with your thyroid. Please get it checked out. If you have too little thyroxine in your body, it can really impact how tired you feel and how you are. So please make sure. You might have celiac. It's really shocking. People don't realize that celiac it's about gluten. However, celiacs also really struggle with sleep. They really do. Tiredness all the time because of the bloating and diarrhea and other things. So please make sure. Also contributes to weight gain, heart conditions, healing inflammation, a whole bunch of things. Honestly, it's a whole bunch. Your body is constantly waking you up so you continue breathing. That's why you're so tired. You are in a permanent state of alert and awareness, and all your hormones and chemicals are all up. Bad sleep is bad. It really is. It might be that you have something like CFS or ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. That really affects us always being really, really sleepy. ME, myalgic encephalitis, I think it's something like that. Encephalomyelitis, I always get that wrong. I can't answer that one privately. I can't do that. I understand that. So it might be that you have diabetes, Hashimoto's thyroid. Wish the buster would take it back. It's horrific, I'm sure, Cinders. I was just about to mention all things thyroid. I had mine removed after my latest GP fail. I'm sorry to hear that. I signed up to Thriver to get my own blood tests here in the UK. The NHS takes a reactive approach and only checks my levels once a year. Yes, which isn't enough, is it? So diabetes, it could be things like glandular fever. You don't call that glandular fever. What do you call that in America? Kissing disease. It's got a different name, hasn't it, in different countries? But glandular fever, mono, thank you very much. That makes a difference. If you are depressed and you are very anxious, your sleep might be affected massively as well. Please make sure that you look after yourself, get yourself tested, or get yourself to see somebody about all these different things. My mum suffered horrifically, especially, funny enough, it went just before she died, but certainly for all the years up until she died, not that she knew she had it, but my mum died last May of cancer. And in the last couple of months, she didn't have restless leg syndrome. But for the 2 years before that, fucking hell, her restless leg syndrome really, really keeps you up. Magnesium deficiency can make you twitch a lot. Actually, the proof isn't always there. Some people turn around and say that if you have restless leg syndrome, you should take magnesium. There is no proper scientific proof to back that up. It is one of those things that says, yes, it's a possibility. It is not an absolute. So please be careful. And be careful. One of my mum's friends takes way too much magnesium and it's just not good for you. So your legs twitch and hurt. You know, when you're going to sleep and the partner really jolts, that's what your legs do in restless leg syndrome. If you are feeling anxious or you have something along the lines of PTSD or you have chronic PTSD or you have a few other things, please make sure that you get yourself looked up after. It's really important. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit, so let's talk about how to get to sleep a little bit, how you can help you. And then I want to go on to some meds also cause legs to shake. They do, that's true, but that's not, that's a side effect of a meds. And I would also get those checked out as well. Also, some medicines are really bad for you when it comes to sleeping as well. They really impact us. Which doctor do I ask if I could have fatigue? Your normal doctor, I would assume. However, where do you come from? Germany. It depends. So I don't know what the system is in Germany. In the UK, we always go through a general practitioner to then go and see somebody else. I don't know. It depends. If you are covered privately, you can go and see someone. It depends. But that's not true, Jill. It depends where they come from. So, because I think, Angel, you said you're in Germany, so that makes a difference. Bye, Ivory. See you later. And you, Gallant. Have a nice one. See you soon. So it depends who you're going to go and see. But even for some people, if they're covered privately, you can bypass that. And you can go to sleep specialist clinics and everything as well. So it really is worth having a look at. Any drugs, anyone, prednisolone, steroids, or amphetamines? Yes. How to make you very, very active. So what do we talk about when we talk about sleep hygiene? We talk about ways to get to sleep. The ways to get to sleep are to be calm, to be rested, to make sure you've got a new system set up. Neurologist diagnosed me. Yeah, well, it could be a rheumatologist, it could be a neurologist, it could be quite a few people that end up covering those things. Elle says, got to go as well. No worries, see you later. So the sort of things we talk about when we talk about sleep hygiene are slightly differently. It's all about how we set ourselves up to go to sleep. It could be that our routine is very set. When you want a baby to sleep, you set them up with a routine. As an adult, you think you don't need that. Think again, you do. It's really good to have a routine. That routine might be something along the lines of It might be that you brush your teeth. It might be that you wash your face. It might be that you have a hot bath. It might be that you have a shower. It might be that you do certain things to set up a good routine. It might be that you plait your hair if it's really long. It might be that you put your hair in a satin hair mask if it's curly, or if it's really, really, really curly. We have different things. Everybody does different things, different routines that set off our system that say, this is about me getting into bed. We know through research that it's better to be rested when you go upstairs. Do not turn the television on. Do not look at your screen, preferably. I'm okay with the television, but it's not okay for everybody. These things, you make sure you've got a night screen on, make sure you've got orange, so you're covering up blue light. Blue light keeps you awake. It's absolutely proven scientifically that blue light keeps you awake. So we want an orange interfacing light as much as we can, or anything that covers that. I go to sleep looking at my Kindle because my brain is a weird thing. We're all different. So it's really important to make sure that you find what works for you when you go to sleep as part of your habits. Having your room colder, this is on average for most people most of the time, and it isn't for everybody. Having your room colder really matters. So a little bit colder is good. Warm feet is a better idea. The reason people sell so many cashmere socks and bed socks is because it actually works as a thing. Actually, a lot of research also proves that slightly damp feet can be better. Is that a good idea if you want a load of athlete's foot or infections? Find your balance. However, if you have a hot water bottle, or if you have a heated cover sheet or a heated undersheet, often getting it further down towards the bottom is better. So don't always cuddle your hot water blanket up, or your hot water bottle up here. Put it over your feet if you want to sleep a little better. Even if you've got a raging temperature, sleep with all the covers off you. But if you have warm feet, you're more likely to sleep. So these things are really important, little things that really matter. We need, our circadian rhythms are regulated by like a pacemaker system in our brain. And what influences that is light, temperature, and social interaction. So we know from light, for some people, it's about making sure the room is really, really dark and black. For others, it doesn't influence them at all. I'm hopeless at sending myself to bed. I'm fine at falling asleep, but often do so downstairs. And actually that isn't good for you, because you then have to wake yourself up, start again, and then you go to bed. And when you go to bed, you're not actually tired anymore. So it's also about social interaction, which is another reason why we say, please put these down. If you don't put these down, if you start interacting with other people, let's say you start to watch a video because you think it's harmless, but then you're getting really cross with the person on the video, you are creating a social interaction, albeit internally, because you're really cross with that person because of what they're doing. Or you read something online and you don't feel positive about it. All of these things can help you sleep. They really do make a difference. The most vulnerable group of people are university students. They're the worst at sleep. It's why a lot of psychotic episodes happen in university, and it's also down to how they feel and how they're awake. It makes a real difference. So please be careful. Trying to get into bedtime routine are my own worst enemy. I really get this. It's a difference. Whoops. Oh, and somebody's got to go. See you later. Lynch them. So they're the worst ones. And you know, the worst people are actually medical students. They have the toughest time because the amount of work they do and how exhausted they are and what happens. Poor sleep quality is the worst in medical students, and they're the people we go to save us should we feel really ill or not. Okay. If you can't fall asleep, another thing you can think of is taking some form of snack. A lot of people say to you, don't eat for 45 minutes before you go to sleep. Not quite what we think it is anymore. That's a bit like saying, don't swim on a full tummy, you'll drown. It's not as simple as that, especially when we've done the research. A protein-based snack 20 minutes or so before you go to bed is really good if it contains tryptophans, the precursors to serotonin. So it's really, really good to make sure that you have a little snack, which can make sure that your circadian rhythm can also link on to the fact that you've been fed, that you feel good, and you're going to sleep through. Because a lot of us will wake up. I keep falling asleep on the sofa, and then I have to figure out how many episodes I slept through. That is never a good idea. Jill, there's a whole rant in there about the medical profession being trained. Well, yeah, well, I don't think they're trained. I just don't think they've got any choice. So there are different things you can do when you can't fall asleep. As I say, the temperature of your room really matters. Make sure you've got cleaner blankets and sheets, duvets, whatever it is that you use. Wash them regularly. Make sure your blankets, duvets, and pillows are quite fresh and quite new. You need to renew them every so often. Mattresses last a variety of years, depending on the sort of mattress that you've got as well. Some have a guarantee of 7 years, some have a guarantee of 10 years. However, people tend to keep their mattresses for 10 to 20 years. So actually renewing a mattress every so often, but they're fucking expensive things. However, you also spend most of your time in bed. You cannot flip and rotate all mattresses. You have to have a look at them, Jill. So it depends. Some you can just rotate, some you can or can't flip. It depends on the type of mattress that you've got. But it's a good idea to do. But then we don't like it. We don't sleep as well for the first few days because we're used to having our mattress in a certain way with all its indentations. I was about to say that, Dory. Thank you. Mattress toppers can help. They can make a difference, and they're much easier to flip and rotate. And different mattress toppers can help us at different times of life, because it might be that our joints and different things ache in different ways. So we use a more memory-based foam or anything else as well, and that can really help as well. And clearly, you've also got things like bed bugs and different things. Like Cosmic is the person to talk to about that. Please make sure you have a clean bed. Please make sure you clean your mattress and your surrounding bed. You'll be surprised at the sort of shit that can keep you awake on a regular basis, which isn't particularly good for you. And of course, animals and things make a difference as well. Did I say that? Changing your sheets regularly, please make sure you wash it. I thought I did, but like I managed to put mine out the other day. You know that fresh feeling when you put it out on the line? Oh my God, that's one of my favorite smells. And somebody turned around and said to me, oh, I wouldn't mind getting in your bed and making it dirty. I'd come all over it. I went, you wouldn't get the fucking chance. No, Tempest, no, Cosmic doesn't have bed bugs. He knows a lot about bed bugs and help you get rid of them. That's what I'm talking about there. He's a real expert on that. No, he definitely hasn't got bed bugs. So it's really important to, no, not even towels. I don't want anything. The smell of a fresh bed, you can fuck off. I'm not having sex for 3 days. The cats are evicted at night. Please be careful about animals in your bed, for dirt, for fleas, for different things. It all makes a difference. And I also understand that we love having our animals in our beds. However, we don't always sleep well. And some of us sleep better with our animals in our beds. Okay, what things can help you fall asleep at night? There are quite a few that you can do if you're really struggling to fall asleep. The military method is all about breathing, mental visualization, and different things that you can do. So that is when you lay down and you slowly relax all the muscles in your body, really trying to. So you start with your face, you tense and you relax, you tense and you relax until you feel very, very calm. And then what you'd have to do is you push your thoughts from your head if you can. Good luck with that one, because not all of us can do that, until we feel very, very calm. And then we picture something really peaceful and calm, like a beautiful boat on a lake or swinging in a canopy or something along those lines. And we rock and we just don't think, repeat. I just spoke to Tempest about this a few days ago. I have a water filtered vacuum cleaner. Vacuuming the mattress, even though it looks clean, is really nasty when you see what comes out the mattress, or it is. Or have a waterproof sheet on top of it with a toweling, so a lot less goes into the mattress. But don't be fooled then that your mattress is clean either, even if it's protected. Things still happen. 4-7-8 method is a breathing method. That's again all about breathing, like I've spoken to you. It's really important to make sure that we breathe in for 4, we can hold our breath, and then we breathe out for 8. Some of us do the 4-7, where you breathe in for 4 and you breathe out for 7. It's really about relaxing. Trying to force yourself to stay awake is quite interesting in bed. It's really strange. No, I'm going to stay awake. Fuck it. I'm just going to stay awake. I'm going to stay awake. I'm going to stay awake. And that's a reverse psychology principle that people can use. As I said, please turn down your technology. Take it away. Don't have your phone by your bed, especially if it's upright, because every time it lights up or does something, it's going to go off. I have Ring technology in the front and in the back. It's buzz. Look, it's just telling me things are in my kitchen. It's not people, it's my animals. But will wake you up. Have your phone away from you. If you turn and say, no, but I use it to wake up, well, use something else. If you use it as a sleep app, make sure the buzz is off, make sure everything's off, make sure it's turned down, so that you don't hear light, you don't see light or feel light or experience light. I've got a ring light, a halo light, because it lights better for this. But if I put my hands over my eyes, I can still see that there's light there. We wake up better that as well. So one of the other things you can do is a dusk to dawn alarm clock that helps you count down and helps you count up. That makes a real difference. And as Zoe says, you can also have just emergency people set through a do not disturb. Yeah, or airplane mode, or any of those things. I have a do not disturb, I think, from 10 at night till 7 in the morning, apart from my love hearts. My love hearts can get through to me apart from that at any one time that they want to. It's what we were talking about earlier. My phone's permanently on silent. It is for me. It is for me permanently because of the sort of work that I do. If I'm working a 10-hour day, I can't afford for this to go off. And my dad just, he'll just text me. He said, have you finished yet? At 10 to 7 today. I said, no, Dad, remember it's a Thursday. I've got my workshop. Oh, yes, sorry, I forgot. The amount of times a message comes up on a Thursday night. Every Thursday, Dad, I've got a workshop. Every Thursday. Bing, up comes a text. And Princess Alice, for waking up, I have a light that comes on dim as I have to get up early. I have the same. I don't suffer from seasonal affective disorder. A lot of people do. That can impact sleep, and we can wake up in the dark. We can go to sleep in the dark. We don't see light, especially in winter or depending on where we live. So a dusk to dawn alarm clock that wakes us, that counts us down and fades beautifully and wakes up beautifully because we wake up to light, makes a difference. Jill, I sort of do. Grew up in Australia, so living in the UK. Yeah, it's very grey, isn't it? The technology really matters. Stop stressing about not falling asleep. That's easier said than done, isn't it? You're in bed, you'll rest, make the most of relaxation. Resting is really important. Autogenic training is quite interesting. Schultz, there's a German psychiatrist who actually looked at autogenic training, which is a form of sleep methodology. It's based on hypnosis. I'm not always the greatest fan of hypnosis, as people know, for lots of reasons, but it's very calming. So if you want to do the autogenic nervous system training method, it's a system of 6 or 7 phases, so you can look it up. So if you want to look it up, autogenic training, when it comes to sleep, it's like mindfulness and relaxation, but it's done in a certain order. So you're looking up Schultz and autogenic training. Have a look for yourselves rather than me spending hours telling you. Do you have tips for switching your sleep schedule? I'm trying to stay up further into the night and get up at like 10 to 11 a.m. and then without fail wake up at 7 to 8. I guess I want to ask why you want to wake up at 10 to 11. On average, the average human being who is an adult, neurodiversity aside, okay, that's really important, and depression, that lots of other things. Actually, too much sleep can be really harmful, especially if you have depression. Oxygenation, different things come into this. So really, we look for the average human being to spend between 7 to 8 hours at night asleep. So if we are going to bed at 10 and we're getting up at 10, that's potentially too much sleep for a lot of people. Not for all the time. We want between 7. I want to do things that go into 2 a.m. without nodding off. I mean, it's interesting, Dory, because I actually want to then have a full conversation with you. Why? What are you doing? Why does it need to be done then? Can it be done at a different time? What are you doing there? Because actually, going to sleep before midnight is also proven that that's still pretty beneficial to us. People have a really late system and do things in a different way. We have to make sure that we sleep with our certain patterns. REM sleep, which happens more at the end of the sleep, is very energy intensive. Too much can leave you enervated. It's really important. Sleep shift, not oversleeping. I'm still curious. I'm too curious, Dory. Why do you want to shift your sheet from here to here? Sleep from here to here? Because actually what most people do is want to shift their sleep back. If you naturally get up around 7 or 8, it's really hard to change that. You can start going to bed later and later and later and still forcing yourself up and eventually getting tired. Try not to nap a lot of the time, although a tiny nap can help. But for a lot of people, napping then turns into a sleep. And it often, you ask anyone who does shift work, they try and nap, boom, they have a massive sleep and actually they end up feeling really rough. Like I know a bunch of people who work later in the day and want to have post-work stuff. Yeah, okay, I'm going to be really harsh here with that one, Jill. You can't go to everything. You can't do everything. We can't physically manage and do it. We have to look after ourselves and have some sleep. It's events and stuff can't be moved. And wanting to be awake for part of a night shift person. So yeah, there's lots of advice around if you look at night shifts and patterns. But the problem is if you just want to do it for an event, it might be that those events aren't particularly good. I'm not trying to be facetious and tell you what to do. I'm really not, and I hope you don't take it that way. So it's really important that we learn to do things in a certain way. Can you shift just for sometimes and then shift back? No, it takes months to shift for some people. Some people, when they're trying to change their patterns of sleep, can take absolutely months, and then start to need medical intervention. And then we rely on medical intervention, biological tablets, bits and pieces. That makes a difference. LGW. I do all this stuff, but if housemates are wandering around the house late at night, there's literally nothing that can be done. I agree, she doesn't have a job. I always have earplugs and white noise machine and rain sounds to fall asleep with, and I can't ask people not to move around at all. Any advice? No, actually, the only thing you can do is to say to people, look, I appreciate that you're up and I appreciate that that's a big difference. I really need some sleep. And one of the things you can do is try and use something on your door to try and make sure that you help with the sound that's coming through. That can help as well. You want something that fits in and pushes in and makes a real difference. And what else could you do if it's rented accommodation? Because could they improve sound? I guarantee they won't know. However, there isn't a lot more else that you can do apart from speak to the person and say, please help. Makes a difference. Cuthbert, I work shifts. Napping is a game changer. It can be, for sure. It makes a difference. Lots of people can't afford to live alone though, Jill, can they? That's the problem. I've struggled with sleep for years. I've had to really look at what I was doing, get a routine, but what I was eating and when it was impacting me. I agree with that. So when we eat really matters. If we eat too much, if we eat a small snack around 20 minutes before, that can also really help us. If you have a huge gap before you go to sleep of like 5 or 6 hours, let's say you eat at 5 and you go to bed at 11, then we've got to be really careful because that's too long a gap. You will actually get hungry in the middle of the night. And that can make a difference as well. Have a small glass of water, different things can help you. So yes, eating at the wrong times can make a difference too. Her bedroom is above mine and the floors are wooden. Would she consider putting down a rug if you bought her one, a heavy duty one, if you were to do it? Or, ask, because they might say, well, I can't afford it. But if you get them a rug, because you can afford it, it might be worth its weight in gold. Late events is more when I get home 1 to 2 a.m. due to travel, but I do say no if I need to rest, even though I don't want to miss out. Yeah, it's a very difficult balance. Dory, I used to be a night owl, but somehow I managed to trap myself as an unwilling morning person because of work, which work from home I can now adjust. It is difficult, isn't it? It is difficult to adjust. The key is getting up at certain times if you want to make your pattern later. If you want to make your pattern earlier, it is about it's about changing when you go to bed or changing when you wake up. Either of those can work. If you want to make sure you do wake up, it's the opposite for you. It is about going to bed later. You might have to give yourself a small power nap to help yourself through that. However, if you forever wake up at 7 or 8, it might be about keeping your house darker. It might be about an eye mask. It might be about other things, because we can get moving alarms that go under our beds and things that vibrate. You can put something under your pillow, as long as it's not dangerous. So that can wake you up. If you've got good earphones, noise cancelling things, it can all help as well. My flatmate and I have had to shift sleep schedules to accommodate both of us being introverts. Yeah, I get that. I can't afford to live alone. Yeah. Could I ask her to wear socks? Yeah, hitting perimenopause, my sleep pattern has changed massively. Yes, it's understanding your body, isn't it, as well? Understanding the difference that it makes and what you need to do. You can do body scans. Having something warm is really good for you, a warm bath or a warm shower. Learning to breathe is really important. Progressive muscle relaxation can make a real difference. What I wanted to spend, though, rather than just talking generically about sleep hygiene, was to talk about, see you later, Jill. And they make these really cool sound absorbents that stick to the wall that aren't too expensive. Yeah, if you can afford sound absorbency issues, it's a really good idea. You can even put them on your ceiling. And you can put things under floorboards, but for most people, they won't do it because it is a rented accommodation. So they don't want to. There are lots of neurochemistry. There's lots of neurochemistry at play when we go to sleep. I wanted to talk about, for some people, so I want to connect trauma, neurochemistry, sex and play, and sleep. So I want to have a BDSM aspect to this because that's what we're about, or a sex aspect to this. When you play late at night, when you do these things, you stimulate certain chemicals or response. When you stimulate the chemicals or response, so like when you're playing, whether you like it or not, if you are hit, your body goes into a state of panic. Even if you really, really love it, your body's natural response is the normal response that you have if you're getting hit, which means a lot of norepinephrine and a lot of drugs that stimulate and wake us up, because we're actually stimulating our sympathetic nervous system. And when we stimulate our sympathetic nervous system, that has a big impact on us. And our ability to sleep is really impacted. If you have PTSD of any way, shape or form, or trauma, the likelihood of you having a normal sleep pattern is also actually quite low, because the way the trauma triggers, I hate that word, physiological responses and changes in our body that are long-term and short-term as well. Permanent arousal, state of arousal, anxiety, different things that come in. When we play heavily or have sex, we create a lot of chemicals that stimulate and wake us up. Now, with sex alone, some of the chemicals for those of you that are renting, there's a lot of adhesive hooks on the market now that leave no marks, holes in the walls. Can be a good way to customize your space without losing your deposit. Yeah, but it's how, because the sort of things that we're talking about, sand absorbers, they need to take up your whole wall, often a whole area. They're quite big. So with sex, often in human beings, we naturally want to curl up afterwards and sleep anyway because of a lot of the natural hormones that are created. When we play, it's a completely different kettle of fish. So when we stimulate the sympathetic nervous system to come into play, we're in a state of high arousal, high awareness, and a real sort of like, fuck, I'm really awake now. You might feel like you want to sleep, but the sort of sleep you get is going to be very different. And for some people, they feel very stimulated and can't sleep. If we start playing with someone and it breaks up our normal schedule of sleep, that has a big impact as well. A schedule of sleep is really important. You also need to sleep where you feel safe and you feel okay. If you have some kind of trauma in your life and you sleep in somebody else's bed, or the play is quite traumatizing, even though it's fun and we really love it and we're having a great time, we need to feel safe afterwards. That really matters as well. We need to make sure that we engage our body's relaxation system, that we turn around, which by doing some of the things we just spoke about, breathing exercises, calming exercises, body tension exercises, all those different things that can really help us. That can make a difference as well. Because the neurochemistry of sleep is actually quite interesting when we start to look at it as to what happens. So when we actually fall asleep and when we want to go to sleep, there's a lot of stuff in our body that's happening when we're awake. The electrochemistry, electrochemical aspects of our body are awake because we need to be awake. That kind of goes without saying, really, doesn't it? I hope that makes a lot of sense. But in order to sleep, we need a lot of different chemicals to start reacting in a certain way to make sure that we get to sleep. And a lot of these we can't take, we can't make happen, we can't. So there are sleep identifying chemicals that we have recognized and that we know that can really help us drop off to sleep, that make a difference. So what are they? You've got GABA. So GABA is our inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it makes us switch off from wakefulness to asleepness. So it's not what GABA says is, actually, I need to help you fall asleep now. So we need to make sure our chemicals are in the right sort of thing. Adenosine is one of them as well. That's about our metabolic and our electrical activity in our bodies and in our brains, our neurons. And it helps. What that is we have natural sleep pathways in our brain, and it creates the right sleep pathways to help us get to sleep. We need all these things to help us get to sleep. Nitric oxide is one. That's actually a molecule that makes a difference as well. Let's see if anyone's saying anything. Melatonin is a big one. In some countries, you can buy melatonin. In the UK, you cannot. It's not approved by the FDA for us. And that's a gland at the base of your brain called the pineal gland. That's how it's created. And that can happen for us in different circumstances to help us sleep. And that's often signified by light that makes a real difference. And that helps our internal clock. The problem that we get, which is why I'm connecting this to play, is if you have excitatory, those neurochemicals that say, hey, wake up, come on, fuck off, let's get going. That is your norepinephrine. And that's what's created when we play a lot of the time. We're going to do it. Our epinephrine and our cortisol, all of those things really keep us awake. So when we have a challenge, or we have something we need to think about, or we have some kind of play, those things are turned on and they prepare us for action, not for rest. So please, when you start playing, think about a good amount of time before you can get to sleep. Think about the relaxation that you need. It really makes a difference. When your cortisol comes up, especially in high stress, cortisol is like, I'm going to keep you awake. You're all right. I'm going to keep you awake. You okay? Yeah, we're up now, aren't we? And we're gone. And it really doesn't help us. So we have to really make sure that we can relax those things. So I think part of play, if you're playing really late at night, for some of us, we might want to curl up and just snuggle up, and it might make a difference. We want to switch off. And that's a nice feeling. We're like, yay, I'm done. I can just sleep now. For some of us, our sympathetic nervous system has risen at norepinephrine, all those different drugs, that cortisol, makes a difference. I'm going to have to go. I'm struggling to stay awake. Night, night, Alice. I'm sorry, some of the stuff I'm talking about is pretty boring, isn't it? But what I'm saying to you is, if you are playing heavily and you are using all these drugs before you go to sleep, it's not necessarily healthy for you because you won't be able to get to sleep afterwards. Sex can help. Having an orgasm can help. So sometimes mixing your play with sex could help you. It's not boring at all. It is for some. I'm talking a lot about chemicals and stuff, and I really try hard not to do that. I try very hard to use very boring, normal language because I think we all relate to it a hell of a lot better. However, if you are playing and you're setting up your system to be in a strong alert and response system, sympathetic nervous system is engaged, that's not easy to sleep on. And that's the sort of stuff that is engaged when you do have stress, when you do have PTSD. So it's really important after play to introduce some kind of system to help you both relax, to help you switch off. For some people, they'll do it easily. Anyone here go to sleep straight after play? Some do. Others are fucking like, that's it, I'm wired for the night, I'm off. Like, you would think after this, I really need to get to sleep. What I find is I feel quite tired at the end, hit 9, and I'm like, God, I could really sleep. But then I walk out for it and I go, right, okay, because I'm buzzing as well. It depends what play sometimes. Yes, so it depends what part of your body and your brain it stimulates. It makes a difference. In order, play, sex, dram and fag is a wee dram, as in a little sip of something. Sleep follows from memory. Yes, okay, so we can set systems in place, and that's what I mean. So part of what we need to do is rituals, is habits, is put good things into play for us so we can actually sleep. It's really important for the people that don't crash. If you are a partner of someone who crashes easily, that's nice for them. Is it nice for you? Because as they're drifting off to sleep, snoring their fucking head off because they've had a really relaxing time and you are mega awake, try and do something together. Try and make sure that you can sleep together. It could be that you have a little bit of food. It could be that you have a wind down. It could be that you turn the lights down. It could be that you change the music. It could be that you make it a little chilly. So you need to get into bed to feel comfortable to fall asleep. And I think as well, especially if you're meeting a new partner and you're having play, they don't have to stay the night always. Sometimes when we sleep with new people, it's really uncomfortable. We don't like sleeping with them. You're not obliged to sleep the night with somebody. Sometimes kick someone the fuck out. Other times, don't do that because you could be using someone and it doesn't feel very nice. Have a conversation. I'm really conscious that I snore. When I sleep with someone for the first week or two, I hardly sleep because I feel so bloody worried that I'm going to keep them awake, that my sleep is awful. So I need to have better conversations with people when they start to stay of, you can go in the other bedroom if I start snoring or whatever, but I'm going to fall asleep in my bed. It's really important that we look after ourselves. Anyone got anything else they want to say about sex and playing, BDSM and sleep, or sleep generally before we wind up for the day? Some amazing advice here. I'm a Sleepier fan as well, Debs. Speaking of apps, it's not free. Now, it was during the height of the pandemic, but for people with ongoing sleep issues, I think it can be useful. It's 6 sessions of an app-based supported CBT program. In some areas in the country, it's NHS funded. Always worth checking with your GP. Brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. So Sleepio, if you can get something along those lines, could be really good for you. It's really, it's worth looking at, isn't it? So make sure you do look after yourselves. There are sleep programs as well available on the NHS if you're in the UK. That can be really good. It's really worth looking at. It's really worth making sure that your sleep is really, really fucking important. So I would always make sure that I do. If you want to know what we're covering next week, what we're covering at the beginning is we're talking about, is there an explanation for how I can think about the time I want to wake up and do? Habit. And actually that's all to do with pre-morteming. I'm pretty much like that. If you're aware of the time and you have an awareness, some people do have an innate ability to turn around and say, I need to wake up, I'm going to wake up at that time. I can pretty much rely on myself to wake up quite carefully, and I always have alarms as backups. We're all different. Next week, we're talking about breastfeeding, adult nursing relationships. So what I'm going to talk about there is how to create breastfeeding environment, how to help yourself breastfeed if you want to create milk. I'm going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to talk about pumps. I'm going to talk about the right sort of drugs to use with the right sort of advice around those, and some natural aspects to bring in, because a lot of people find adult breastfeeding and adult nursing relationships very, very close. Melatonin is about £40 per month as well, and very easy to get with a private script, which I've used before, can be arranged online, so it's not hard to obtain. No, it's not, but it just costs. If you want some melatonin, let me know. Brian's going to America next week. She'll bring you back a pot of 500 for next to no money at all. So if you want some, let me know. And I'll bring you some back when I come back in April. I've just bought 1,000 paracetamol. Well, Brian bought them for me. You can buy them in pots of 500, whereas in the UK you can't. So if you want some melatonin, let me know. Brian will bring it back for absolutely next to nothing. You can buy it in the normal store, and it comes in hundreds in a pot. So next week we are talking about breastfeeding. It might not be your thing. It's still quite interesting. We're talking about how to induce it, what to do, and the sort of benefits and everything that it can bring. We're going to be talking about jealousy in polyamorous relationships, jealousy in other relationships, how to handle jealousy, what jealousy is about, and why we have it. And then we're going to talk about kink as we grow up. What was it like for you? And I really want to hear from you in this one as well. What happens for you when you have those weird things when you were a kid, those fantasies, those sort of things that you thought about, and the impact that that had on you, because you actually ended up realizing you were kinky and that there was a community out there. And then the week after that, I'm going to do a whole workshop based on maybe a bit of history about where BDSM came from and how we live with it in different countries and what it means, but mainly talking about training. What does training mean? Responsibility of being a dominant or a top, and responsibility of being a submissive or a bottom. And we're going to be talking about protocols, different things that are put in place, training, and collars. It depends how well I know you as to whether I would give you melatonin, because like that would worry me. I'm going to say that as well. When purchasing bulk, they do card. I bought it in massive bulks from wherever. Depends where you are in the States. It can be used in other drugs. So if you're in Florida and you walk into any large shop, you can actually buy it. I'm in the US and I've never been carded. I've never been carded when I've gone in there and bought shit tons of it back, I promise you. So they're interesting topics, aren't they? So we're doing adult nursing relationships, jealousy in relationships, kink fantasies, like what's the impact of that? How did that impact us? What did it mean? And we're going to share those things. And then the week later, we're doing training in BDSM, responsibilities on each side of the slash, protocols and collars, maybe a bit of history. And somebody just asked me privately, can we have a workshop on fisting? We can. We can talk about how to fist, what to do around fisting, potential prolapse or not, anal prolapse or not, rose budding, because of course we've got to add that in there, haven't we, as well, if we're going to go into anal as well. Sorry to the person who asked, but you know, all holes can be absolutely fisted. We can do sounding, so why don't we do fisting and sounding on the same day? So that will be in 3 weeks. There is a person on FetLife who started writing how-to guides, which is interesting because I've already written some of them. What they're writing, Nurse Hubris, they can be really good. They're about this long and they're quite easy to read. I will cover sounding as well. And Poppy can talk about sounding because she's a real expert at that. So we'll do fisting and sounding for 3 weeks' time. So we'll have a look at that as well. So we'll do all of those things up and coming. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you've had a nice time or that you've learned something in some way, shape or form. When you do that, can you go into Ask 101? So what do you mean? So just about anal sex and using your arse generally. So I can talk about fisting, arse and anal play and sounding. Does that sound about right? So we do that. We can do that. Thank you very much for coming. I hope everyone's learned a little something in some way, shape or form. And then we'll carry on from as what we're talking about with all those things in the next couple of weeks. So I better write those down now, otherwise I will forget. Anal 101. Fisting, sounding. All right. See you all next week if you want to come along, and see some of you on Sunday. See you later. Take care. Bye. Wink wave. Bye.